Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about 10 niche fragrances that have other fragrances that smell similar in the industry, hopefully offering them to you as alternatives or fragrances that you may be interested in checking out if you like the original. I'm excited to get on with this list, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin this video of 10 niche fragrances that actually have close cousins in the industry, and I'm offering them to you as alternatives in case you do like that original fragrance, meaning the one that was released first, I want you to check these out. Please make sure to support this channel by subscribing to it if you like this type of content, if you like top 10 videos, reviews, giveaways, unboxings, and more. And of course, if you can take a second to like this video, it would really go a long way. And so, because I've smelled so many fragrances and I own a lot of fragrances, occasionally I might smell fragrances that remind me of other fragrances. Now, I do want to make a point of mentioning that none of the fragrances in this list are clones of other fragrances. They just happen to be fragrances that possess a similar DNA. And so, for example, if you are a fan of fragrance A, chances are you're also going to be a fan of fragrance B because it does things in a similar way. However, there might be like a little twist, or there might be a few added notes, or maybe they subtracted certain notes. And so, as I go along in this video, I will make a point of mentioning what I find to be the significant differences among fragrance B, all right? And I'm also going to mention that if you are interested in sampling 3 of the fragrances mentioned in this list, they are actually part of my Max Aroma bundle for the month of August. I'm going to leave information to that down below, so please make sure to check it out. If you do purchase a bundle, you will be directly supporting the channel, and of course you also have the opportunity to sample 3 of the fragrances in this list for a really good price. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and start it off with a random one. And so the fragrance that came out first is Side Effect by Initio. So this is the first pair that we're going to be discussing. 10 fragrances, 5 pairs. So Side Effect is one of my favorite fragrances ever. It's cinnamon, rum, vanilla, I think a little bit of like a tonka bean vibe as well. And so it's boozy, but it's sweet at the same time. One of my favorite fragrances to wear in the autumn, which is coming up. And so I also love wearing, Rehab from the same house. I love wearing Oud for Greatness as well. I think these are all great fall fragrances, but this is probably my favorite. I just love Side Effect. It's boozy, it's deep, it's sweet, it's also like a little sensual and romantic, perfect for like a date night. So the fragrance that came out after it that I think smells quite similar to it is actually by Montal, and it's called Dark Vanilla. Now with Dark Vanilla, I actually find this to be a little bit spicier. Now of course this does have cinnamon in it, so that's going to make it a little bit spicy in and of itself, but I actually find the Montal fragrance to be a little bit spicier, and then at the same time it has this agarwood note in the base. And so if you've smelled Montal fragrances before, you know that a lot of them do have oud, not only in the name of the fragrance but also in the base of the composition, and this one is no exception. And so if you're looking for a slightly darker version of Side Effect by Initio, you may want to check out Dark Vanilla by Montal. I personally don't have a favorite. I think both of these smell great, and I really do like the vibe that the Montal gives off. But of course, I always like giving credit to the original, which is Side Effect, and that is the one that came out first. Now, the next pair that I want to talk about, and let me make sure that I pick up the right fragrance. This one is by Tom Ford, and it's Tuscan Leather. Nobody is a stranger to Tuscan Leather. Such a popular fragrance, came out many years ago, almost a decade ago if I'm remembering correctly, maybe even longer than that. And it has this raspberry and leather pairing. So it's dark, it's leathery, it's mysterious and sophisticated, but it also has that fruity accent to really open up the fragrance and make it quite interesting, in my opinion. Now, there is a fragrance that smells kind of similar to it, definitely goes in its own direction, and it's by the company Royal Crown, and it's called Upper Class. So in my opinion, Upper Class does give off a bit of a Tuscan leather vibe because it possesses that same leather accord. But this has Tuscan iris in it, so it's a little bit more floral. It has this smooth quality about it. And I actually recently had a friend smell Upper Class, and he mentioned something that hadn't occurred to me before. He goes, wow, this smells like a less harsh version of Tuscan leather, and then I smelled it again and I was like, you know what, yeah, you're absolutely right. So this still has spices in it, like I think it has cardamom in it if I'm not mistaken, but it is a less harsh version of Tuscan leather, because Tuscan leather, if you've heard the narrative that is being perpetuated in the community, some people say it smells like an ashtray, some people say it smells like cigarette butts, and so there's a little bit of a harshness in there, and I think that that kind of adds to the allure and the magnetism of the fragrance. But of course, if you're looking for a smoother, more polished and cleaner version of Tuscan leather while still employing that raspberry leather combination, check out Upper Class by Royal Crown. I think it's an awesome fragrance. Super stoked that I have it in my collection. The next fragrance that I want to talk about is a gem. It's a masterpiece. It is one of the most popular niche fragrances in the world, and it's by Xerjoff, and it's called Erba Pura. Now, Erba Pura is this beautiful combination of fruity notes, and then you also have some musks in the base, but the fruity notes really stand out. At times it smells a little bit like apple, at times it smells a little bit like melon. There is a fragrance on the market that smells similar to it, and it's by Kajal, and it's called Dahab. Now, the significant difference between these two, I would say, is that with Dahab, you get more of like this exotic passion fruit vibe. And so in terms of the fruity accord, it's not exactly the same. And there's like some lingering notes in the base that make this one last such a long time. This is actually one of the strongest and longest lasting fragrances in my entire collection, and I think that says a lot because I have a lot of fragrances, but with Erba Pura I feel like it's a bit more polished, whereas this one is a bit more aggressive, if I may use that word. Now that might actually be a good thing for some people. Some people want a fragrance that has, you know, unrelenting longevity and will get you noticed with like 2 sprays. If that's your shtick, if that's what you're in it for, I think Dahab will serve you really, really well because it is quite a potent and powerful fragrance. And so I feel like Dahab, again, just to summarize, it has a little bit more of that apple in the opening and more passion fruit. So I think that fruity accord, if you will, is a little bit more exotic, whereas this one focuses a little bit more on like melon or cantaloupe or some of those types of fruity vibes. Now, of course, if I were to do like a full lab analysis and I see exactly what notes are in there, I could probably distinguish better what's inside each one. But just going off of my impressions on a side-by-side, which I did do a side-by-side of all of these fragrances prior to the start of this video, that's what I would say are the significant differences between these two, in my opinion. So the next fragrance that I want to talk about is Creed Aventus. And of course, I could have featured 100 fragrances in this video that smell like Creed Aventus, because there's everything from Hachavat by Nishane to Orion by Tiziana Terenzi. Basically, there's no shortage of Aventus twists on the market or fragrances that smell like Aventus. But the one that I want to talk about in this video is by Michael Malou London, and this one is called Jet Black Intense. So this is their newest fragrance, but what I like about this one is that even though it does give off an Aventus vibe, it deviates from that Aventus formula quite significantly, in my opinion, where you still have a little bit of that Aventus picture, you know, in the background, and you can see it if you squint your eyes. It actually has some added fruity notes in the opening, from what I remember, and also lavender. And I think what the lavender does is it makes it a little bit more youthful, a little bit more designer, if you will, a little bit more contemporary. And of course, it doesn't have that birch tar harshness that some Aventus batches do, and that's actually one of my favorite parts of Aventus, that birch tar note. It really masculinizes the composition, in my opinion. But if you're looking for a more youthful option to Creed Aventus, check out this Michael Malou fragrance, Jet Black Intense. I think it's awesome. Now, the next fragrance that I want to talk about is actually the last pair, and this one by Roja Parfum is called Creation E, otherwise known as Enigma. So the perfumer behind this one is Roja Dove, and I know a lot of people say it has like a Coca-Cola vibe. Some people say it has a Dr. Pepper vibe. So it basically has cognac and spices and woods, and it's such an amazing fragrance. The fragrance that I think smells kind of similar to it is by Amouage, and this one is called Enclave. Now with Enclave, you get a little bit of that same sort of root beer, Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola vibe that's in there. You still have a little bit of that booziness, and you have that resinous sweetness in the base with the benzoin and the labdanum. But with this one, you have this note of mint in the opening. And so you really get a lungful with it, and it really opens up your sinuses. So you have that really bright mint that is in the opening of the fragrance. And so it's a little bit easier to wear, I think, than Creation-y. Creation-y is one of my absolute favorite fragrances in the autumn. Such an incredible fragrance. I personally love wearing it all times of the year just because, you know, I wear it indoors, and I really don't focus too much attention on what season it is and what fragrances are appropriate. But, you know, it is a little bit heavier, so I think this one with the mint probably creates more versatility, but it does take the attention away from those spicy, boozy nuances, which a lot of people are a fan of. And so I think a lot of people will really like Creation-y just because of that dark, mysterious, sensual quality, that enigmatic quality, pun intended. But I think some people will also like Enclave because it does have that bright mint in the opening, kind of opening up the fragrance, making it accessible to somebody who doesn't want something as dark, something as mysterious, wants something a little bit more agreeable, for lack of a better word. But in any case, one thing that I can say is that I personally enjoy all of the fragrances in this list. If I didn't, they wouldn't be in my collection. And if you have tried any of the fragrances in this list, but you haven't tried the counterpart, I would really encourage you to check it out. Again, the link for the Max Aroma bundle is going to be down below if you're interested in sampling 3 of the fragrances in this list. And also, if any of these fragrances sounded interesting to you, I'm sure there are other ways that you can sample them, either in store, if you do have a department store near you that carries any one of these fragrances, or I'm sure you can always find samples online on a decant store. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you took something of value from this video, again, I would really appreciate it if you would consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. And of course, if you can give this video a thumbs up, that would mean a lot to me as well. And oh, if you want to see me do a part 2 to this video, if you want to see me do the same thing but with designer fragrances, or you want to see me do the same thing with designer and niche pairings, I can do that as well. So just leave a comment down below. Always love the interaction. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great one. Love you guys. See you soon. Bye.